The Maryland Terrapins lose to Ohio State.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for making us part of your day. And the Maryland Terrapins fall to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And to be completely honest, it was a game that we could have completely won. We controlled the first quarter. We even controlled the first half. We went up 10-0. The defense got a stop on the first drive by Ohio State, and then they came down, and the Maryland Terrapins scored right away on a Caden Prather, one of the best catches you'll see all year on a left-handed, one-handed grab. Caden Prather made a great catch, and the Terps were up 7-0, and I was tweeting on the Locked On Terps Twitter, the Maryland Terrapins, perfect start, exactly the way it needs to go, and I was excited. And then the defense continued to play well and continued to get stops, and then the offense, they couldn't do enough. Taulia Tagovailoa just didn't have his best game, didn't have his best stuff, but we were down in the red zone. We were down under the 10-yard line, and Taulia tried to throw the ball to Preston Howard, and Preston Howard was wide open for the touchdown in a play that we absolutely needed to make, and Taulia overthrew him a little bit to the right, and Preston Howard couldn't come down with the catch in the end zone. That's the difference between 10-0 and 14-0, which could have been huge in the game. And overall, I felt good with how we competed in the first half. And then Ohio State, of course, they got it going a little bit with the pick six to Taulia. Their defense kept them into the game, Ohio State did. The pick six from Taulia was a bad throw. I thought Tyrese Chambers was kind of open, but he laid it on the wrong side of Tyrese Chambers, and the defender made a good play. So Ohio State gets the pick six, and now it's 10-7 when it could have been 10-0, and Maryland punts the ball on third down instead of Taulia making that bad throw. And then we're looking at a completely different ball game at 10-7 compared to 10-0, and Ohio State has the ball at their own 30 or even 40-yard line. We're looking at a completely different game. Overall, Taulia didn't play well enough to win. He couldn't take advantage of the opportunities the defense gave him. 2 picks today, that was the difference. I said it. Maryland was going to have to win the turnover battle if realistically we wanted to win. We were down by 1 in the turnover battle at halftime, and still some way it was tied, and we still should have been up. But Taulia didn't have his stuff overall. He went 21 of 41 for 196 yards and missed Preston Howard in the back of the end zone, like I said. And the 2 picks just hurt so much overall. But we went into halftime, or we got to talk about the end of the first half first. The end of the first half, we had an amazing opportunity. The offense was driving with under a minute left. We got the ball. We got a nice pass interference call, and then the offense had the ball with 1 play left with like 12, 13, 14 seconds left. But Taulia decides to check it down instead of taking a shot to the end zone or just chucking it out of bounds. Taulia checks it down to Antoine Littleton, and that's the end of the half. Instead of getting 3, instead of going up 13-10 and having a little bit more momentum and having the lead, Taulia instead checks it down to Antoine Littleton. And those were the 3 biggest mistakes, and that was the difference in the game. The 2 picks, and then Taulia checking it down. That was basically a turnover. If you think about it, Taulia checking the ball down to Antoine Littleton and not getting those points, that was the same thing as him throwing a pick or fumbling the ball in that situation. So overall, Taulia didn't play well enough to win. I said he had to outplay Kyle McCord, and it looked like for most of the game he was going to do that. It looked like he was going to outplay Kyle McCord. He had a better stat line in the first half. It looked like he was going to get more yardage, but that's not ended up happening. But we went into halftime, and it was a tie game, and we had the ball. And I mean, I'm down a little bit because I'm like, I just don't know if we took enough advantage of enough opportunities of how well the defense was playing. Giving up 10 3 points, actually, because you got to remember that Talia pick 6 was a defensive touchdown for Ohio State. Giving up 3 points to the Ohio State Buckeyes with Marvin Harrison and Mecca Mbuka and all those dudes they got, giving up only 3 points to those guys is truly pretty amazing for the Maryland Terrapins defense to do. So I give all credit to them. I said it. I thought our secondary was really good, and we'll get into them a little bit later. But they were kept forcing Ohio State to punt. Kyle McCord looked out of sorts. He had a terrible start to the game, and I was still feeling somewhat confident, but I knew that we had missed a lot of opportunities, and it was going to be hard to take down Ohio State because I knew Ohio State still had some stuff in their sleeve. They always do. Coach Day, he's a good coach. There's going to be a lot of controversy about him, but he's a good offensive coach, and I knew he had a couple plays in the bag for the Ohio State Buckeyes. So we go in the half 10-10. I'm at that point, I'm like, if I had to pick a team to win, I'd pick Ohio State, but I still had confidence in the Maryland Terrapins. I still had hope. And the first, we get the ball, and the offense makes an amazing drive down the field, and they score 7. And I'm like, here we go. Okay, so we got some offensive rhythm. We're up 17-10. Talia makes the guy miss on the rushing touchdown to score. And I think we're cooking. I think we're ready to go 17-10. I'm like, our defense has played awesome. And then that's when it happens. Ohio State scores again. And I'm like, okay, it's 17-17. And then from that point on, it was Ohio State game, basically. From that point on, Maryland Terrapins offense basically stalled out. We couldn't really do much. And it just wasn't enough from that point on. We knew that Ohio State was going to have a lot of stuff coming out at halftime, and they did. They proved that they could have a bad half and continue to play a solid game overall. Give credit to Kyle McCord for coming back after a horrible first half. But my other key of the game was stopping Marvin Harrison. This is one thing I didn't get. We had a huge opportunity. I think it was like 2nd and 38 or something crazy like that. And this might have been – there was another bad play call where I actually need to go back and talk about in the first half, but I want to talk about this. It was like 2nd and 38, and the Maryland Terrapins made one of the worst calls of the game defensively. Defensively, I thought the game was called well. I thought they did many things really good, but there was a terrible call defensively in the 2nd and 38. I was screaming because I hated the fact that on 2nd and 38, when we know the only chance they can convert on that is a Marvin Harrison or one of their other wide receivers to get down the field, get vertical on a vertical route, and one-on-one coverage and beat one of our corners. That's the only way you can kind of get in position in 2nd and 38. And this is what happens. It's 2nd and 38. Notes are heaped still, so we have Jaquan Shepard, of course, starting, but Corey Coley played the whole entire game. I don't think he had a bad game, but we leave Corey Coley on Marvin Harrison, one-on-one, no safety over the top on 2nd and 38. I could not believe it. There was no safety to be found on that play. And I want to point out real quick, Dante and Bo Braid played amazing. They played their butts off. They played like some of the best players on the field. And Dante Trader definitely put himself on the map after that Ohio State game. If you watch that game over, the amount of plays he was making was truly amazing. And one thing that they keep talking about is him playing lacrosse and how like almost football is his side hustle. It's the other way around at this point. Football is his thing. And I'm pretty sure Dante said that he's not going to play lacrosse this year. But Dante played awesome and Bo Braid played awesome, but we had no safety over the top. I don't think that was their fault. I think that was the play call with no safety over the top on 2nd and 38 on Marvin Harrison. That at that point we were down by 3. We were still in the game, but no safety over the top on Marvin Harrison was just truly maybe the worst call of the game. And then also when Billy Edwards, when we were up 7-0 and the Maryland Terrapins had a chance to drive down the field and get 7, Billy Edwards came in for the 4th and 1 call, and they called a draw with Billy Edwards, and it was just so predictable. It was so obvious that was what we were going to do with Billy Edwards coming in. You could see it by the formation with the empty backfield. I would have preferred to just hand it off to Littleton. The run game was working all day. The run game was really good. I thought Antoine Littleton played really well. I thought Hemby had a couple of big carries, but I was surprised with how well we were able to run the ball because Everybody knows I talked about how we have not been able to run the ball all year, but we were able to run the ball against Ohio State pretty well. So we did a good job with that in the running back, in the backfield. So hopefully that continues for the rest of the season. But overall, I did not like that Billy Edwards quarterback draw. But like I said, I want to get back to the Marvin Harrison point. The goal, I said, we have to force other guys to make plays. And if they go off for 150, like if Julian Fleming goes off for 100 yards and Cade Stover, their tight end, goes off for 100 yards, then we tip their hat and we say, good game. But I said we cannot let Marvin Harrison go off. And at first, we were kind of containing them. We were containing them, and then Marvin Harrison just started to go off, and it was 8 receptions for 163 yards, and McCord was starting to find him. And at first, it wasn't mainly over the top. It was underneath stuff, like quick hitches. But then as soon as he got the over the top stuff to Marvin Harrison, that's kind of when I knew it was over for us and that the Maryland Terrapins were kind of done. And I just didn't like how we continued to play against Marvin Harrison, the best wide receiver in the country. But overall, this is what I would say about this game. We had our chances to win. And in the first half, we absolutely proved that we can compete with an Ohio State type of team. I'm not going to say we should have won the game, but Maryland could have won that game. If we take away the Talia interceptions, that's a completely different game. If we take away the pick six, if we convert on the 4th and 1, and if he doesn't overthrow Preston Howard, who's wide open in the end zone, we might win that game overall. So there's different things that the Maryland Terrapins could have done to win that game. That's why this is kind of disappointing overall, but there is a lot of positives to take away from it. One thing is the secondary played awesome. Like I said, I already talked about Dante Trader and Bo. They played like all Big Ten players. A couple of plays that Bo had in the run game and in the pass game, breaking up a pass, one of the first plays of the game, played awesome. And then Dante Trader also broke up a pass to Marvin Harrison, played awesome. I think they completely put themselves on the map. And then I thought for Tarheeb still being out, I thought Jaquan Shepard and Corey Coley did a pretty solid job of holding up besides a couple of Marvin Harrison plays, which you're going to expect him to make a couple of plays. But maybe the most surprising thing of the day, Maryland run defense stopping the run against Ohio State. So those are positives on defense that we can take away. Ohio State was shook in the first 2/5 of the game. They could not run the ball. Pretty much the entire game, they couldn't run the ball against us. They were forced to throw the ball. And I actually said the opposite. I was like, I'm okay if they run the ball against us, but we can't let Emeka and Marvin get going on us. But it's the opposite of what happened. We forced them to throw the ball in a lot of situations, and it was working. Kyle McCord continued to kind of just check it down early on in the game. He didn't really take much shots down the field, and it was working. We were getting them into even like 3rd and 5. Like they just weren't converting overall. They missed a bunch of 3rd down conversions overall in the first part of the game, and the run defense, like I said, it was really working. And overall, I hope we can take that for the rest of the season because they said it on the broadcast. Joe Klatt said it on the broadcast that Maryland hasn't been a good run defense team so far. And I've talked about that. That defensive line has kind of been the weakness, but they did step up today. They played beyond good enough to win. They got pass rushing spots too. Donald Brown had a pretty good game. He had a really nice sack. Kellen Wyatt got to Kyle McCord. But overall, the 2 interceptions just killed us. The Billy Edwards call, the miss Preston Howard, it just wasn't good enough. We weren't going to win the game playing like that. And overall, it's just a disappointing loss. Knowing that we were in the game, we were up 10-0, and there was different things we did that allowed Ohio State to kind of win that game. I want to answer the question, did Maryland lose the game or did Ohio State win it? I'm kind of leaning towards Maryland lost that game. I'm not going to go sit on here and say Ohio State won that game from us. But overall, we're going to try and stay positive. You can take a lot of good things away from this. We're still 5-1. Overall, you would take that. I still think, I don't know if we can be ranked in the top 25 after this week. I hope the rest of the country does respect us a little bit more, even though we ended up not covering the spread. I thought Maryland would cover the spread, and this is an interesting thing about spreads. The spread was 17.5. It kept going down. When I said they wouldn't cover, it was at like 19, but I thought they would cover the spread. But if the kind of way the course of the game went, it felt like they covered the spread, but they didn't, just overall because Ohio State started to separate at the end. But there are positives, like I said, that we can take away. We stopped the run well. We ran the ball well. So the two biggest weaknesses on our team, we did well. And I said it, Talia can't have a stinker game. And I'm not going to say it was a stinker game. I said he was going to have to throw for 300 yards. He only threw for 196. He completed just a tad over 50%, which just isn't good enough overall for Talia to win that game. For 21 of 41 for 196. It just wasn't good enough. But Antoine Littleton, positive. Stopping the run, positive. Roman Hemby, I'll say it was a positive. He still looks a little bit hurt at times. I thought our wide receivers, one last point I want to make, I thought they were overall positive. They made some big plays, and they're going against a tough secondary at Ohio State, not like one they face. They've been used to just getting open. This game, you could tell the difference. There were NFL throws that had to be made from Talia. It was NFL windows. It wasn't like Ty Felton was just streaking open for 80 yards or Corey Dyches was wide open. It wasn't like that anymore. The Ohio State guys, they were there. They made some big plays, our wide receivers, but the Ohio State guys were overall right there with them on those plays. But that's all we have today. On Monday, I'll talk about the loss a little bit more and get into what it means a little bit and see if the Terps end up maybe being ranked. But thank you for listening to Locked On Terps. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.